Welcome to Just Ask Spirit, everyone. I'm Sherry Anna Boyle. I'm your host, and I'm so happy that you are here today. You are in for a treat. Let me tell you, if you're new to the show, this is a show, as you can imagine, we talk a lot about spirituality. We mix in some conversations about mental health because they are connected, they are not separate. And we recognize that on the show. And we talk from the angle of that we are spiritual beings first, folks. I mean, that's just the way it is, but it's not always easy to navigate life on earth here. And we very often forget that, right? But I know that my guest today that you're thoroughly going to enjoy. I know that you remember that, and it's George Lizos. George, welcome to Just Ask Spirit.
Sheriana, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And so George is coming in all the way from Greece, everyone. So that's what really fabulous. And going to share a little bit about, well, we're going to talk about light today and more specifically, protecting your light. And George has written a new book, and we were just talking about it, everyone. And if you're watching it on YouTube, you can see it because I'm holding it up right now. It's called Protect Your Light, a practical guide to energy protection, cleansing, and cutting cords by George Lizos. So there it is. And George, I mean, it's beautiful. I love the cover. And I know that you worked hard to get the cover that you wanted.
Yes, and it was very important for me to have the circle on the cover because the circle symbolizes completion, protection. It's like symbolic of feeling safe and secure. That's why I wanted that on the cover.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it when every little step of the way is conscious and mindful, and we're really aware of the vibration that we're putting out in the world. And that's it's so important. I don't think people realize that when especially when healers are putting books together. But let me just introduce you to the audience, George. So George Lizos is a spiritual teacher and intuitive healer, passionate about helping light workers to follow their purpose of creating positive change in the world. You had a number one best-selling book called Light Workers Gotta Work and Be the Guru, creator of the Intuition Mastery School and host of the Lit Up Lightworker podcast. You can follow George, everyone. Go to georgelizos.com or go to at George Lizos on Instagram. So you already wrote a best-selling book. Why did you write this book?
I wrote Protect Your Light because as I was hearing from my audience, light workers, spiritual seekers of all kind, they were so passionate about finding and following their life purpose, which is the topic of my second book, Light Workers Gotta Work. It's all about finding your purpose and following it. So I guide people to find their purpose, they find their purpose, and they're like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know how to follow it because as soon as I get myself out there, I can feel people's energy attaching onto me. I can feel people judging me. There is so much negative energy that gets me feeling so overwhelmed, so bogged down emotionally, psychologically, mentally, energetically, that I just want to lock myself in the house and just stay there and quote unquote work my light from my meditation pillow. So I'm like,
I'm sorry to laugh.
even
Yeah.
the motto of my book Lightwork has gotta work is the world won't change sitting in meditation pillows all day long because we
Yeah.
gotta feel our light, know our light, but then we have to like work our light by getting out there, interacting with people, writing books, creating courses, like speaking up. But
Yeah.
how can we do so when our energy is cluttered with so much negativity from other people? Because we're extra sensitive, because we're so empathic, it's very important to have tools and practices that we can use to protect ourselves, which is why I define energy protection in the book as the art of being energetically authentic. It's about having clear boundaries between us and the outside world. It's about having control as to what kind of energy is coming towards us. It's not about isolating ourselves. It's about mindfully having boundaries and choosing what comes in and what doesn't.
Interesting. And I couldn't agree with you more, George, because this happens with a lot of people that I see as well. In fact, I just got off a session with somebody this morning, and it's perfect because that's exactly what we were talking about. What do you do when you can feel someone's energy? And let's be clear, you don't have to be a light worker, right, George, to feel energy. So some of you listening might not be doing, I know that you work a lot with light workers, but it might just be regular folks who are intuitive or empathic or just are picking up on things. And it can really be so difficult because what I find is it can make it difficult to make decisions like, do I go? Do I stay home? How long do I stay? Right? Am I going to have to go through a recovery period after I've go visit my sister, my brother-in-law, or something like that, right? So people, they generally, I mean, it's very stressful, George.
It is so stressful, and for so long in the spiritual community, we've had basic tools to protecting our energy. Everybody's like, oh, just shield yourself with white light, or just cut the cord, or just call upon Archangel Michael to like shield you with a purple light, which are all powerful practices.
Yes.
However, in the past few years, our world has become increasingly interconnected, both online and offline, especially during the pandemic. Everybody has gone online, and let's make something clear here. Online spaces are also spaces. That's why in part 4 of Protect Your Light, I teach about digital energy protection, because when we browse online, we're interacting with people the same way we're interacting when we are offline. So we don't have to get out of our houses physically to be energetically affected. So because our world has become so interconnected, we're so much exposed to energy, to an intense amount of energy, like 10 times more than in the past. So our interaction with people has increased, but our practices and our spiritual toolkit has not improved. So the reason I wrote this book was to update our spiritual toolkit with a more complex but not complicated set of tools and practices and meditations that we can use to protect ourselves. For example, when we meet with family, we're going to use a different shield than we're going to use when we go to the airport, because we have a different intimacy level, we have different intention behind each one of those situations, and therefore we can't just use the white light shield for everything.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm opening up your book, and I know the audience is like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? And so let's take the example that you just gave. What would you do in terms of the airport, and what would you do in terms of a family member that you might consider to be draining to you?
Perfect question. So essentially in Protect Your Light, I teach a 7-step system to protecting our energy. I will share the main 3 steps of the process. They're not the first 3, but they're the main 3 steps. And then I'll go into the shielding. So the main 3 steps are: step number 1, identify. That has to do with energetically tuning into our energy field to identify what's there so we can clear it. And in the book, I talk about all the different types of energetic attachments that we can catch. There are collective thought forms. There is residual energy that we get from other people. There are psychic daggers of attack and jealousy. There are energetic cords that we have to anything and anyone we have relationships with. So many different types of energetic attachments, and we need to identify what's there. Second step is all about clearing. We're using a set of different tools and practices to clear what's there. And again, in the book, I talk about different practices about clearing our energy, most of them centered on the earth-based practices, working with the elements. And then step number 3 is all about shielding, which comes to your question, using different kinds of shields and layering different types of shields depending on the circumstance. So when it comes to interacting with family or friends, now I'm going to take friends as an example. So people we have intimate, strong, positive relationships with. Okay, let's not take the example of the aunt that annoys us. Okay, let's take the example of someone we have a close, loving relationship with. We want to connect with them. We want to be open with them. Therefore, if we use a repelling shield, in the book I distinguish between transmuting, repelling, and amplifying shields. If we use a repelling shield, then we're going to be closed off emotionally, and we won't be able to create a deep emotional connection, share, understand, be there for the other person. We're going to be aloof. If we have a repelling shield, such as a mirror shield, for example, that I teach about in the book. However, we can have an amplifying shield. An amplifying shield amplifies our energy, raises our vibrational frequency, so we feel high vibe. And even if the other person is negative or shares something negative with us, we dominate the energy in the room, because we have these high vibe shields, such as, for example, the rainbow shield, keeping our vibration high and ensuring that it filters whatever comes through, so we can be open, but at the same time protect our energy. And then if we go to the airport, we're surrounded by like an ocean of people we don't know, so much stressful energy going back and forth. We don't really want to connect with every single person out there. And because we're empathic, we pick up energy from everybody around us. This is the time to be aloof. This is the time to shrink our energy a little bit and just like shut ourselves into our emotional world. From psychological terms, healthy dissociation a little bit. We're dissociating a little bit just to let ourselves like survive the waves of energy all around us. So that's a place where we're going to use either a repelling shield or a transmuting shield. I like using transmuting shields, such as a fire shield, which basically has to do with visualizing fire around you that burns negative energy as it's coming towards us.
Interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting, George, because I find a lot of people, they just want to spread love, right? So they say, oh, I want to help the world be a more positive place. So when I go out in public, I want to smile at people and try to uplift the energy. But I'm hearing you say something a little different. I mean, I'm not hearing you say don't smile, but you're saying if you're in like an airport, that is not the time, if I'm getting this correctly, to just open yourself up. Is that correct, George?
Yes, but it also depends person by person. So
Gotcha.
some people who are very sensitive, who are very empathic, and they get overwhelmed to the point that they don't even want to get out of their houses, then the best thing they can do is protect themselves with a powerful shield that's going to keep them like shut into their own worlds a little bit. It doesn't have to do with being rude or not being like kind to people when they're interacting with you. It has to do with having stronger boundaries.
Okay.
But there are people that are casually more open. They may be sensitive still and empathic, but they have more experience in managing that and navigating that. In those circumstances, you can use a lighter shield, whereas you balance it. That's why in the book, I share different types of shields, different types of transmuting shields, for example. Let's say, for example, you want a lighter transmuting shield. You want to be high vibe and uplifting while still being protected in an airport. You can use a forest shield. A forest shield is an elemental shield where you visualize yourself in a forest, and therefore you're instilling your vibrational frequency with the energy of the forest. So it's high vibe, it's uplifting, but at the same time it's transmuting. So you can be high vibe and kind and loving and smile at people, like be a little bit more open, while at the same time be protected.
I love this. I mean, that, really no one's, this is new, George. I mean, you're really bringing in different kinds of shielding, and I can appreciate what you said in terms of, we've been doing the same way light shield for.
Shariana, hold on a second, cause you're muted. I lost you. Okay, now you're back.
Okay. I'm back. Yeah. Sorry, everyone, if you're listening. I'm still here, everyone. I don't know what it is, some kind of technical glitch, but I can appreciate that. The other day, and I want to offer this to the audience. And well, first I encourage you to get this book. And when you get the book, you just got to try it, right? I mean, it's one thing to hear it, but it's a whole nother ball game to take these practices and just have fun and try. And the other day I was going to the supermarket and I decided I was going to try a different type of, I guess you would call it shielding. I didn't really think of it that way, but now that you're talking, it was a shielding. And so I kind of did a few little things in my car. And then I went in and I'm walking and I felt like everybody was smiling at me. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm just watching, I'm observing, I'm just having fun with it, in terms of calling in the energy and what you put around yourself. And I thought to myself, this is like, is this me or is everybody smiling, like making a point to turn their heads and smile? Do you find that, George, when you start really using these kinds of techniques? That have you discovered that?
Yes, especially when this is done consistently. Because what people need to realize when it comes to energy work is that it's not a one time fix all kind of solution.
Yeah.
You don't do it once and then you're done. It's a daily practice that you do every single day. And I warn a little bit people in the book, or I just let them know that if it's the first time that you're going to clear your energy consciously, because I guide people through a process of scanning and identifying, you're going to find lots of stuff there that needs clearing and it's going to feel overwhelming. So don't let it overwhelm you. Let it clear yourself, go through the process, but then maintain it every single day. Have a daily energy protection practice where you consciously tune in, clear, shield yourself. That strengthens your energy. It raises your vibrational frequency consistently, and then you notice attracting people, circumstances, opportunities that match that high vibration you've created. And what's really important to note here is that when it comes to manifestation, energy protection helps with that because it gets you in touch with who you really are. Energy protection is the art of being energetically authentic. It's about reconnecting with your soul, and your connection with who you really are. You're already protected when you're in alignment, essentially. You're already safe. You're already secure. It's all these external energetic attachments that we bring in that prevent us from accessing that sense of safety and alignment. Sure. So by consciously tuning in, clearing and shielding, we're essentially reestablishing consciously every single day our connection to who we really are, and therefore keep on strengthening that vibrational frequency. And when we are vibing high, we're attracting, like you said, people and experiences and circumstances that match that high vibe frequency.
Absolutely. And, something just popped into my mind, an interesting thing that happened to me. And it's just making sense now because of what you're saying. But we need to take a quick break, everyone. If you're just joining us on the radio, I'm speaking with George Lizos' new book. He's the author of the new book, Protect Your Light, a practical guide to energy protection, cleansing, and cutting quartz. It's a beautiful, beautiful cover. If you're on YouTube, check it out. So pretty. And we'll be right back after the break. So hang in there. Welcome back to Just as Spirit. Today we're talking about identifying, clearing, well, the first three steps of George's process: identifying, clearing, and shielding your energy so you can protect your light. George Lizos is here to join us and to share insights about this topic. Now, before the break, George, this is what I love about podcasts, and you must find that too, or when you read a book, someone's book, or you listen to their podcast, so things start clicking in your own life, right? Things start making sense. So another grocery store example, because I live there basically. And I went in and again, I do similar work as you. So I'm always moving the energy, calling in all this other stuff. So I'm in the grocery store and I'm getting a birthday cake from my daughter. And so, like one of those quick in and out. And I went into the 10 items or less thing, right? So I'm in line. I'm kind of a chit chatter. Like I'm one of those that likes to get to know you. And so I'd say to the lady behind me, I know she has two items. So I said, if you want to go ahead of me, that's fine. You have two, right? No, I'm fine. We're chatting. I get up to the register and the cashier says, how many items do you have? And I said, I have 10. She goes, you do? And then I said, I literally counted. And I said, oh, I have 11. And she goes, you have to move. I was like, okay. And I just the woman looked behind me and was like, she was just as dumbfounded. And I just moved. She goes, you got 11 items. You got to move. So I went in the other, and I have to say that I'm having a moment. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what just happened there, right? So I'm in another register, but I noticed when I was leaving that she was no longer at her register, it was completely shut down and empty. So now I'm thinking to myself, maybe she just wanted to go home. You know what I mean? Like maybe she's just, I don't know. But what I'm realizing now, everyone, the point of you telling you this, and George, is I think sometimes that's how the universe protects us, right?
Mm.
So if somebody's in a bad mood like that, because this was out of character, I've been in her line many times. She's a very sweet woman, very kind. That was not that was not at all like her in previous experiences. So I'm going to guess that sometimes, do you find that is my question, George, when you use these tools and techniques? Don't take it personally, people, if all of a sudden you're pulled out of a situation, is what I'm saying.
Yes, and this is a perfect circumstance during which an energy shield or a cord of attachment
Okay.
should come to place or be released. For example, let's say, for example, you went into this situation without any shields on. Your energy was completely unshielded. You were psychologically a little bit low, and therefore your natural energetic defenses were down. That, like, seamless event could have negatively affected you. It could have made you feel offended. You could have ended up in a fight. You could have gone into an argument, and your
Yeah.
whole day could
Yeah.
have been ruined. If, on the other hand, in which I'm assuming you had some kind of shielding on, or
I
you
did.
consciously raised your vibration, so your vibration was already high, you had some kind of shielding on, and therefore you went into this situation and it didn't affect you in the same way. This is the power of doing energy work that essentially works with intention. So, by the way, all these shields that I talk about, some people think about, oh, but I can't visualize. But you don't need to visualize. You just need to have intention. So we create shields by intention, and intention can be visual, it can be verbal, it can be just thinking about something, or simply just willing it to happen. So you can intend for your vibration to be high. You can intend for you to have a violet flame shield around you, or a golden pyramid of light shield around you, or two different layers of shield without even visualizing them. And that shows the difference between you getting your day ruined because of something as seamless as that, or seeing the lesson behind it and having a deeper understanding behind what something happened. At the same time, if you were unshielded, you could have created a negative energetic cord between you and her.
So what do you
Now,
mean by that, George? Because a lot of some people listening might not understand
yes,
what that means to have a cord.
yes, let's talk about cords and daggers because they can be similar in these kind of situations.
Okay.
We have energetic cords of attachment with anyone and everything we have a relationship with. So think of the umbilical cord that a kid has to their mother.
Mm-hmm.
When the cord gets cut, there is still the energetic cord intact. So they
Mm-hmm.
are invisible energetic cords connecting us, connecting people we have a relationship with. Like, for example, the Wi-Fi. It's there, but we can't see it, but we still know it's there. Same thing
Right.
with those energetic cords. They are there. So anything and everyone we have a relationship with, we have energetic cords. If the relationship is positive, then there is positive energy flowing through this cord. If the relationship is negative or toxic, then there is toxic energy flowing back and forth through this cord. And that's why, let's say, for example, we get out of a toxic relationship, the relationship physically ends, but we still feel the other person's energy, and we still, it's so hard for us to move on. That's because the energetic cord may still be intact, and therefore whenever the other person resents us, then that
Yeah.
energy gets transferred to us and we feel it. In
That's right.
situations with strangers, we can still establish minor filament cords. So they're like thinner cords, but still they can hurt when we have this kind of energy exchange or emotional exchange. At the same time, if the other person feels anger or jealousy towards us or any kind of negative emotion, that energy can be manifested as an energetic dagger or different type of weapon on our back, on our energetic back, which can
Okay.
block our chakras, block our energetic system, and create different types of symptoms, both emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical. So in
Okay.
this situation, she may
Yeah.
have sent you an energetic dagger. And if you didn't
Oh,
have a protection, then you would have been negatively affected by it.
that is so true. She might have. It didn't penetrate because I ended up sending her love. I went out, I rolled my car, I was in tune. I was like, oh, and I just said, just send her love, just send her love. So clearly, it didn't affect me, but that is interesting. She could have sent me a dagger.
Yes.
Yeah,
But you had your shield
unconsciously.
up. You had your shield
Unconsciously
up
or
and you cleared it.
consciously.
Yeah, consciously or unconsciously, yes.
Interesting. Okay, so let's take two examples. If you're using the example of the one I just gave, how would I remove that? Is that too much of a question, or can you answer that without
Yeah,
us?
yeah.
Okay. And then the second one is, what if it's somebody that you broke up with?
Perfect.
So,
Okay,
because this
so
is someone I'm not emotionally attached to. So there's that aspect, right? It's not someone
yes.
that is in my world. And then the example, well, what if it is someone that used to be in your world or is in your world? So there's more of an
Yes.
emotional thing. Okay, go ahead.
Exactly. So
Yes.
if you don't have an intimate relationship with someone, it's easier to clear the energy because there is not much stuff there
Yeah.
to deal with, like more than just the energetic attack. And therefore, once you go through the 7-step process that I lay out in the book, you go through the process of identifying what's there, seeing the energetic dagger, and then you use various processes to remove it. A process I can share that I teach in Protect Your Light is the magnet process, the energetic magnet process.
Yeah.
And therefore, you visualize a magnet behind you, removing and therefore attracting, magnetizing that dagger out of you, and then sending that
Like an
to the
actual
ether,
dagger.
an actual dagger, and seeing that being transmuted by the beings of light.
Yeah.
So there are many
Love that.
practices, but that's just one that I can teach
Love that.
about in the book. When it comes to cutting cords of attachment,
And you
there are
might need a
different.
big magnet for some
Yeah,
people. Like a big,
depending.
like just think, yeah, let your mind wander, folks. Like you might
Yes,
need a gigantic magnet for,
and
for some
remember,
daggers. Yeah, go ahead.
this is intentional. So the dagger is in your mind, but it doesn't stop making it real. So it's
Yes.
still a real, like, energetic magnet, but
Yeah.
you're creating it and removing it with your own intention. Now, when it comes to energetic cords, there are many different ways to cut cords. My most preferred way is to cut cords using our own hand. Now, in the book, I make the case for using our body as our most powerful energy protection tool because I believe in the power that we have to clear ourselves. Yes, I love crystals. Yes, I love all the different bells and whistles we use in the spiritual community. But sometimes we give our power away to those tools. So we need to remember they're complementary to our power. They don't have power that we don't have. We
Amen.
give them power because we have that power. So I like to use my hand as a knife to imagine the cord and then cut the cord, or snap the cord, or pluck the cord out of our energetic system. So these are 3 practices to remove cords.
So cut.
Now,
Okay.
yes,
All right.
knife,
Like an axe. So if you-
scissors, weed it out.
scissors, pull it out, folks. Pull it out. Yes. Like a
Now,
weed.
to bring in the psychological perspective here,
Yeah.
it's very important to realize that the energy work is not the end of the work. And this is how I end the book with this chapter, do the work. Many people feel like, oh, I've done a clearing and therefore I've done the work. No, you've
no.
just started the journey of doing the work, because as soon as you remove stuff, you reorganize your energetic system, and therefore that triggers limiting beliefs, it triggers emotional, suppressed emotions, it triggers all the inner cognitive work that still needs to be done. And also, for us to attract any kind of energetic attack, that means something within us allowed it. And that's when the work of psychology comes in, where we have to dig in our energy field and our psyche and identify the cognitive blocks, the limiting beliefs, the conditioning, the emotional trauma that's creating opportunities for this energy attack to manifest.
Wow. Well said. So true, because I mean, even some light workers out there, they're not doing the work, George.
Yeah, and you
Maybe
know
they're
what?
maybe they're I'm not saying they're not serving, because I don't want to put that
Yes.
out. I'm not saying if you're a light worker, I'm not saying that you're not helping people and that you haven't done wonderful, wonderful things. But what you and I are both saying is you have to do the work on yourself too, right?
Yes. Yes, and it's a
Um,
journey. It's a journey. Like,
yeah.
I've been doing this spiritual, energetic work for so long. And just last year, I decided to do a master's in psychology because I realized, you know what? It's not enough to just focus on the energy work. So now in my psychic clearing sessions, I bring in cognitive practices and psychological practices on top of the energetic because I think both are important.
Wow. Good for you. You're really amazing. You're a really amazing person. I'm so glad that you're guiding and teaching people out there. And you're really bringing what I love about this book. And again, if you're just listening, everyone, I'm speaking to George Lizos, author of Protect Your Light, a practical guide to energy protection, cleansing, and cutting cords. But you're really bringing kind of quantum healing to the masses, right?
Oh, that's a great compliment. Thank you.
And really, I mean, this is stuff that, if you're someone who's just listening because you're interested and maybe you work in healthcare, I know our healthcare workers could benefit greatly from this, being around people that are hurting, or if whatever kind of service business, any kind of human service, customer service, you got to protect your light, folks. And then I love what you just said. Then you got to do the work because stuff comes up. Sorry.
Gotta work that light.
There's no get out of jail free card here, folks, right? Awesome. This is fantastic. And we need to take another quick break, folks. George, would you be willing to come back on and just guide us through one quick thing? And then before we end the show?
Of
I
course.
think that would be really nice for everyone that's what I'm feeling right now. Usually I do the last segment on my own, but I feel like everybody could use a dose of something. So I'm going to let you tap into your intuition, George, and see what would serve everyone. So we'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Just Ask Spirit. I'm speaking with George Lizos, author of Protect Your Light. We're just about to do a practice together. And George, go ahead.
So the practice I have for you is the first most important basic practice that I teach in Protect Your Light that I feel is one of the most powerful yet underrated energy protection practices, which is centering. Centering has to do with ensuring that our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, our energetic body, our spiritual subtle bodies are all occupying the same space within us, because sometimes our physical body may be present but our mind is somewhere else, our emotions are somewhere else, and this is when we're vulnerable to energetic attack. So when we claim our power back and bring everything to the present moment, then we strengthen our natural energetic defenses, we align ourselves with who we really are, and therefore we're naturally protected. So the way to center yourself, I want you to visualize your heart right now. You can do this with us. Visualize your heart.
Unless you're driving. If you're driving,
if you're driving, you can still do it with eyes open. It's very
simple. Eyes open. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So visualize your heart. Go ahead.
So visualize your heart as a magnet. And visualize the magnet that is your heart starting to attract the different layers of your aura to the center of it. And you have the emotional layer, the mental layer, the astral layer, the etheric template layer, the celestial and the etheric layers, all the 7 layers of your aura. Visualize them being magnetized to the center of your heart. And while you're doing that, you can feel your mind clearing up. You can feel your emotions settling down. And you can feel this sense of sovereignty, this getting in control of your body. Visualize your aura shrinking in. Visualize your power center being in your heart. And breathe deeply. And with the next exhale, strengthen that connection. And affirm mentally or out loud, I am in control of my energy. I choose who or what enters my energy field. I am powerful. I am connected. I am energetically protected. And with the next inhale, you can open your eyes and you're now centered and protected.
I love it. Ooh, how do you feel, everybody? You choose it, baby. You choose it, right?
Feels good, right?
I love it. Yeah.
So great. Simple.
So simple. Thank you. Thank you, George. This is great. I think it's what needs to happen right now. We need to stop thinking about what's happening on the outside and really use our own spiritual tools. right?
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure having this
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, this is great. So you can hear my voice is lower. I'm all centered and
Yeah.
calm, right? Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Just Ask Spirit. And head over to sherryannaboyle.com when you get a chance and grab your free meditation there. Don't forget to follow George Lizos on Instagram, and also myself, sherryanna.boyle on Instagram. Check us out. And also remember, your emotions matter. Processing them matters more. Take care, everyone.